People with home security cameras. What's the creepiest thing you've ever seen happen while you were asleep? Story 1. A couple who would drive by at random hours of the day for a full week would walk up to the house and look at my dogs, pit bulls. Look into each window in the front and even check the back gate/fence. The camera was older and had no notifications, so the only way we knew was the moment they decided to open up the door, and were subsequently rushed by my dogs. I heard the commotion and grabbed the only weapon I had, a bat, to find the front door open and what looked like a murder scene in my living room. Blood everywhere, all over the floor, the front door, the little entranceway, the window. Turns out I have 2 very good boys, and the idiots went to the hospital to eventually be caught by police. They were gonna take my dogs to be in dogfights, involved in a bunch of other seedy things. Drugs, prostitution. Story 2. We bought a new house about 8 months ago and installed security cameras recently. I looked over the footage to see if it was working properly and didn't want to believe what I found. At around 3 a.m., there was a random guy that was briskly walking in and out of my driveway and kept shifting around. He looked as if he needed to find something. He goes over to one of the bushes on the side. It represents the burial line and takes a crap. A effing crap. I had to replay it a couple of times to make sure I was seeing this correctly. Then I thought, is that thing still there? Turns out it was still in the shrub. Guess it was his housewarming gift. Story 3. When I was a poor college student, my wealthy cousin and his wife went on vacation and offered to let me house sit to give me a break from my 3 slovenly roommates. They live a few towns over in a very nice house with a huge front lawn and a fancy, tall iron fence and double gates. The fence and gates are about 11 feet high. You have to be a remote to open the gates. That first night I slept so well. I had breakfast like a king and then drove to the school. I got back around 5, made a supper fit for a king, and settled down to write an econ paper. My cousin has a warning system for when someone drives, turns off the road, and comes up to the gate. There's a chiming sound and you can look at the screens in a couple of different rooms to see who it is so that you can buzz them in. I was deep into my paper when I heard the chime. I was confused at first and checked my phone before I realized what it was. I looked from the sofa and could see movement on the security screen. I stood up and got closer and had a clear view of 2 women getting out of a white car. One tried to squeeze between 2 bars of the gate, impossible, and then the other woman tried to boost her over the top of the gate. Hilarious. The top one fell, and even from the house I could hear swearing. I was about to press the intercom button and ask what the F was their problem, but I was chuckling at their antics and so just watched silently. They peered at the house intently from between the bars like a couple of jailbirds for a while. The skinnier one actually stripped down to her bra and panties and tried to squeeze through the bar again. No dice, butts and boobs were not allowing that to happen. More swearing, then as the skinny one got dressed again, the bigger one went back to her trunk and got out a tire iron. As soon as she started effing with the hinges of the gate, I was on 911. The cops took too long and the women left. I showed the cops the video, but they couldn't get a license plate number. When my cousin and his wife returned the next week, I told them what happened and we watched the tape. He said that he had no idea who the women were, but his wife looked pissed. I packed up, thanked them for my vacation and left. She divorced him that summer. Story 4. So I'm sitting in my living room at night, just recently moved into my new flat. I'm in a basement flat, own entrance in a little townhouse on the edge of the town. Quiet area, lots of trees, cheap rent, and like no public transport or cell reception. I'm living alone for the first time. I just set up the security cameras and hooked them up to a new monitor. The old one was ancient and gigantic. Hadn't figured out where to put the monitor. I've never had a security system before. It was at the time on my work desk, which was at the living room window. I noticed this slight yellow glow out of the window, out of the corner of my eyes, slowly getting brighter. As it does, I notice on the camera that there's a huge ass shadow cast across my door, visible from camera to the left of the window. That looks kinda animal but weird proportions. I quietly crap myself. It sits there for a while, like a good 10 minutes, moving just enough to make me wonder if I'm imagining it moving. There's a kind of whining, buzzing noise, but it's a faint, and I might be imagining it. I suddenly find religion. Then all of a sudden there's a loud pop from inside my building. The glow goes instantly away. There's a sound like a really pissed cat and then really rapid footsteps. I'm in like full cardiac arrest at this point, bathing in my own urine, crying for my mom. Flash forward a week or so. I haven't been eaten by a cat shadow monster, though I do have a sudden new interest in exorcisms. I meet the upstairs neighbors, older couple, when they're having trouble getting a large package up the stairs. They offer me tea as thanks. I notice their cat sitting in the window. Its movement reminds me of something, and after a while I realize it's the shadow monster. I ask a few questions to round out the details. Turns out the neighbors had one of those lights on a sensor, which turn on when they detect movement. Cat jumps up to the ledge, lights turn on, but it was an echo light so warmed up slow. It then went out, loudly. I'm too embarrassed/relieved to recant this story, so I make my excuses, leaving the nice couple upstairs with the impression that their new downstairs neighbor is a weirdo who stares at cats, has a really keen interest in light bulbs, and a predilection for nervous laughter. They don't invite me up for tea anymore, but they do ask if I'm okay every time they see me. Story 5. Wasn't asleep, but when I lived with my ex, we had a few security cameras, and they send you alerts when there's motion detected. I was at work and got an alert that there was motion in the living room, and I figured it was my ex coming home early. But I checked it anyway. Instead, I saw my dog standing in the middle of the living room, staring at the wall. He stood there for a minute, then got on the sofa to sleep. Two things were terrifyingly off about that. One, my dog was a puppy at the time, and was crated when home alone. The crate is made of solid wood, metal grates, and has thick and heavy eye/hook latches, so there's no conceivable way he could have opened the door. 2. He was kept in an office, which is located off the hall, and we kept the door separating the living room from the hall closed during the day to keep the room cooler for him. I looked back at the recording because I was very confused, and unfortunately, because the hall door was closed, I couldn't see how his crate got opened. But the hall door opened on its own, and he walked out into the living room about 30 seconds later. The hall door was like a regular bedroom door. It closed with a knob/latch and wouldn't have opened even if you pushed on it. There were no sounds aside from the normal house noises. No cars or people had been in view of outside cameras since we'd left, and no other motion detections went off. Story 6. When I lived with an ex and her family, her dad's van was keyed very badly. So, being an electrician, he decided to set up a camera overlooking the street where we parked our cars. The camera was accessible via an app, which I had on my iPad, and it would pick up on movement, record it, and save it, or alternatively, you could watch it live. The house was just round the corner from a pub, so we just assumed it was some pissed off person mucking about on their way home. Anyway, one Saturday morning, I go out to the street to see that all our cars have been keyed. I frantically checked the app, and there was an update at 11:30 p.m., but it was just a dog walker. Myself and my girlfriend's dad checked all the updates from the last 24 hours, but nothing. We thought that maybe someone could have moved the camera because it was in plain view outside of the house, so my girlfriend's dad moved it to a more subtle position. From then on, every Friday night for several weeks, we would have the iPad set up in the living room watching the camera live. Nothing happened, and we soon lost all interest and forgot about it. A few months later, I was on my iPad in the house on a Friday night, deleting some apps when I came across the camera app. Me and girlfriend shared a joke and decided to watch it live to see if the cars would get keyed again. We were having Chinese food and watching a film and set up the iPad on a table in the corner of the room. At around midnight, my girlfriend had gone to bed and I was watching the end of the film with my dog when something caught my eye on the iPad. I totally forgot I'd left it running. I watched the screen as I saw what looked like an old lady walk past the house and cars. What was she doing at this time? I thought. Something to do with the church, maybe that was opposite. Soon she disappeared out of shot as she rattled down the street. About 5 minutes later, the movie had finished and I turned all the lights off in the living room. The only light I had was the iPad screen. I picked it up and went to turn it off, but stopped when I saw something on the screen. It was the old lady again, standing outside of the house, just stood perfectly, still staring straight into the camera. What the F is going on, I thought. It was terrifying. She must have stood there for a good 2 minutes before reaching one hand into her pocket and pulling an object out and walking over to my car. She then frantically started using the object on my car. Me and my dog bolted out of the back door. I unlocked the gate and burst out into the street, ready to catch this old bitch red-handed, but nothing. The street was completely empty. No old ladies, just the parked cars outside the house. I jogged up and down the street but saw nobody. There is no way she could have got away in the seconds it took me to get out of the house. Confused, I went to bed, and the next morning I told my girlfriend and her old man all about what had happened the previous night. He studied the recordings, and the camera had picked it all up, to her walking past originally and her walking away after she vandalized the car, and me and my dog appearing a split second later on camera. My girlfriend's dad took the recordings to a work colleague in hope he could enhance the picture quality so we could see the lady in more detail. It worked. We got to see her in all her glory. My girlfriend's mom recognized her. She lived 2 doors down from us and regularly visited the church opposite. We used the recording and reported it to the police. My girlfriend and I split up soon after, so I don't know what happened. I certainly never saw a penny for any of the damage caused to my car. I honestly cannot explain how I did not see the woman walking down the street when I went outside. When I looked back at the recording, I appear on the camera 2 seconds after she disappears from the shot. The only logical explanation is she heard me coming and dived into a bush or under a car, although surely my dog would have seen her. Story 7. There has been a string of car break-ins in our neighborhood lately. We've had cameras up for a couple of years now, so we checked the footage. Unfortunately, while we have the wannabe thieves on camera, there is nothing worth stealing in either mine or my husband's car. We have no idea who they are. The cops can't do much without an ID. One of them is wearing very distinctive shoes though, so we've been on the lookout for an unusual pair of Nikes and who might be wearing them. Sucks when you can only watch someone break into your car. I know it's a little off topic, but we did also have a funny one we caught on camera. Our neighbor is a huge douche who can't handle his drink. He likes to listen to crappy mariachi music all night and into the early morning, which wouldn't be such a problem on the weekend, but he likes to do it on a Wednesday night. It really is a pain in the butt when you have to go to work in the morning. Our neighbor called the cops on him and we got to watch him get pepper sprayed in the face on camera. It was hilarious. Story 8. My sister has a video of her Great Pyrenees being attacked by 2 pit bulls. My sister's dog was 4 times the pit bull's age and managed to put one down on her own as well as severely injure the other one. My sister's yard was entirely fenced in with electrified fencing. These dogs powered through the pain of the electric fence and attacked my sister's dog only to be put down by a dog many times their senior. The owners of the dog later came out and collected their 2 pit bulls and shot at my sister's dog, prompting her and her husband to respond with 9M return fire. They were outside at the time checking the fence line. The 2 pit bull owners were hit in the stomach and leg. Ambulance came out and collected the 2 dog owners, illegals, and police took statement telling my sister not to talk to anyone. After it was all said and done, my sister resized she had been hit by one of the pit bull owners' 22 long rifle rounds in her shoulder. She never felt it and was never checked out by the ambulance. She was watching the security footage later and saw the blood spot in her shoulder on camera. She realized she was hit after her husband checked her over. They assumed it was the dog's blood. Story 9. I used to work for a company in California. Pretty small office just off the side of the road. Lots of gang activity around the area. They've got the Ring doorbell camera so they can safely tell if they can open the door at night. One night, there's a group of guys hanging around looking at our property. We don't think much of it because they leave in about 10 minutes. Next day, a guy shows up and just walks into our fabrication shop in broad daylight looking around. Never has this happened before. Our boss intervenes immediately. "Boss, can I help you?" Guy said, "Oh shit, hey there, are you guys hiring?" My boss said, "No, you have 5 seconds to piss off." Guy leaves in a mad dash. We call the cops and they find him walking down the street 5 minutes later. Turns out the gang was planning on robbing our facility while we were on holiday leave and they assigned him to scout out the interior. Story 10. The guy wearing dark clothes with a hood over his face who walked up to our fence at 3 a.m. saw the dog sign and the fake security cameras we have ought to hide the ones we really have, who then proceeded to get down on half crotch, crawl through our gate and into our yard in an attempt to not be seen by the fake cameras, and got halfway to our door before my sweet good boy went total hellhound and raced to the front door from our bedroom to inform us someone was out there. As soon as the guy heard the dog and saw the lights in our place come on, he just got up and straight ran through the gate and down the street. We filed a complaint with the cops. Nothing ever came of it. He definitely was testing if we really had a dog or security system in place. And that just freaked the hell out of me. We went and got motion activated lights after that as an added deterrent. Good boy got a steak dinner the next night. He's damn lucky I didn't open the door or he'd have gotten mauled and or worse. Story 11. My parents live on an L-shaped large piece of property with a dirt road that runs along the inside corner of the L. My dad walked out of the house very early one morning on his way to work and sees someone pull off the dirt road onto the opposite end of their property. Before he can get in his truck to investigate, the trespassers peel out and take off the opposite direction and he can't catch them. He goes to work suspecting poachers and gets a trail camera to attach to a tall tower he built as a lookout point / deer stand. He goes out once a week to swap SD cards and batteries, never sees much more than animals and the occasional car on the dirt road. This goes on for months and everyone kind of forgets about it. My grandfather goes in the hospital for heart surgery but never leaves the hospital, dying after not recovering from a coma after surgery. Things start to settle down after my grandfather's death and I'm over to work on a computer for my mom. Dad goes and trades cards and batteries and brings the full one back. Part of the issues they had was reading SD cards. So I load the card and flip through the several hundred pictures. I get bored and leave my mom to it. She is visibly upset and looks at my dad and says, "Do you know who that is?" He says, "It looks like your dad." I look and it does definitely look like him. Very distinctive clothing and hat, but missing his dog and gun that never left his side when in the woods. He'd been dead for over a month at the time and the cards had been changed several times since. There was only a single picture, and there would have been no way to get to where this person was without having triggered the camera several times along the way. He had not been out to their property in a few years, let alone to that part of their property. I still have no explanation for it. These were definitely some creepy stories, but if you have stories of your own, please feel free to write them below in the comments so I can make a video on them in the future. Like the video and subscribe to the channel if you liked it. I'll see you in the next one. Also, can you please subscribe, like, now? I would really appreciate it. Thank you.